Council of the Town of Clarkdale for Tuesday, May 28th at 3 p.m. in the Clark Memorial Clubhouse. Roll call, Vice Mayor Hunsetter.
Here.
Councilmember Babbitt Pierce.
Present.
Councilmember O'Neill. Councilmember Jones. And please note Mayor Prudhomme Bauer is here. We have a quorum. Next item, number 3, is public comment. The town council invites the public to provide comment. At this time, members of the town council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later time. Persons interested in making a public comment can either complete out a form, or I will invite you up to the podium or ask if you want to speak online. Each speaker is asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Does anyone wish to speak? Do we have anybody in the audience wish to speak? See none come up. Michelle, is anybody who wish to speak online?
I do. Hello?
Okay. Is that you, Carla?
It is. It's Carla Erickson.
Okay, you can, go ahead and speak.
Thank you. It's Carla Erickson. I live in Clarkdale. I'm not in Clarkdale right now, but I just have a question. I know, or a comment. You're having a town meeting on May 30th at 6 for looking at the proposed changes in the zoning. For those that can't be at that meeting, is there a list of the proposed changes you will be discussing that you could send out to the people that cannot attend?
Yes, Carla, they are posted online. They were posted up today online on our website.
Great. Okay, I'll pull them down from there. I appreciate it.
And if you would like to message via the Zoom application and give Shell your email address, we'll directly send you a copy of the link to those, okay?
Okay,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
you're welcome, Carla. Thank you. Anybody else online wishing to speak? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none. Okay, thank you. Why don't we move on to item 4, which is reports? Yes, would you like to speak? Yes, please come up to the microphone and state your name and if you're a Clarkdale resident.
Yes, my name is Todd Green, and I am a Clarkdale resident. And I just want to make a couple of comments about the strategic plan in general.
We have that on the agenda. We will be opening up for public comment during that agenda item.
This is a opportunity for someone from the public to say anything they want, right?
Not on an item that is not, if it is on the agenda, we ask that you hold it till the item comes before us for discussion.
Right. Okay.
And so if it's on the agenda, public comment is usually not when we take this
Sure.
item.
I understand. Maybe we could get that clarified, in writing, just
I-
communication, understand.
I believe I say right here, the council may not discuss items that are specifically on the agenda. So we ask that you keep that item till your comments until it comes up on the agenda. Okay, Todd?
Absolutely. Absolutely understood. Just a little bit of pressure with 3 o'clock on the middle of the afternoon. And I was mistakenly thinking this was the public's opportunity to have a little bit of forum, but I completely
For
respect
items
that.
not on the agenda.
Oh, I understand. Yes, democracy is arranged in many, many different forms, and I very much respect that. I apologize, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Reports. There were departmental reports that were a part of the meeting packet. That's the building permit report, the magistrate court report, wastewater, wastewater and CAT report, police department report, Verde Valley Humane Society report, and finance report. Are there any comments or questions on the reports that were presented? Council? Green. Okay, thank you. They were all very good reports. I like the way that, all of them are being reported. It's, much more understandable and, consistent. So thank you. Let's go to, item number 5, which is consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, of nature and have been previously studied by the town council at a work session or during a new business discussion. They are intended to be acted upon in one motion. We have one item on consent this afternoon. It's the approval of minutes of the Common Council of May 14th. Is there any questions on the minutes? Okay. If not, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce and seconded by Councilmember or Vice Mayor Hunstetter to approve the consent agenda item A, approval of the minutes of Common Council. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Okay, let's move on to new business, which is the 6A, is the 2024-2026 Clarkdale Council Strategic Plan. And I believe Town Manager Guthrie will present the topic.
I'm going to turn on my mic. For those of you in the audience, I do have printed copies of the strategic plan on the credenza over there. So if you haven't looked at it online, feel free to grab a copy for yourself, okay? Thank you, Mayor and Council. You're going to move it for me, Shell? Thanks. Okay, I'm excited to present the copy of your 24-26. And the reason it's 24-26 is because we undertake a lot in our strategic plans. They're meant to cover a 2-year period, but we do an update on the odd year. So it's not like we don't look at it again for 2 years, but it is intended to be a 2-year plan, just like our last plan was. Go ahead, next slide, please. So I love technology. Thanks, Shell. So just to get us started, you know, you always want to look backwards at what did we do in the last few years. And I know most of the council members know because you get very periodic updates from us. But I thought it would be an interesting exercise just to kind of look at, of all the things that we had in our last strategic plan, how much progress did we make across the board? So as you know, our goal areas did not change. And so they remain the same. So you'll see the 6 goal areas that we have. And basically in goal area 1, of all of the strategies, 13% we did not start. That's the tan area. And often it sounds like, well, we just didn't get to something. And sometimes that's the case. But a lot of times it's really more about when we went to do that project, it no longer made sense, or, you know, it just was such a low priority, we just didn't start it. And so it's not necessarily a negative thing that we didn't get to them. Sometimes it just means it wasn't the right time to do that action. It wasn't as good as we thought it was when we first did it. The second bar, the blue, is in this case for goal area 1, 60% means we've started it. Or we're in the process. And a lot of our goals or our strategies, if you recall, say ongoing. They don't all have a start and an end. So anything that was kind of an ongoing thing got lumped into that blue category. So it wasn't a definitive, it's done. We're continuing to do those. The red is what we've completed from the strategic plan. So for goal area 1, 27% of the items that we began, we completed 100%. So you can kind of see across the goal areas, the percentages of complete, which are significant. And most of the things that we've started were carried forth into this new strategic plan. So they're not lost. It's not like we started from scratch. We carried them forward so they wouldn't be lost. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned that the in progress are some ongoing, so it would be unreasonable to ever expect that 100% would be.
Exactly. Okay, next slide. So I just want to walk through our strategic planning process real quick so that everybody knows how we approach this. So we start by reviewing our mission, vision, and values. And we analyze our inputs. And people often ask me, well, what does that look like? And it's so many different avenues of information. It's data, those reports that you get every month in your packet from all the departments. It's all of the public meetings and focus groups and open house events that we do when we gather feedback from the residents during those. And I think I've provided you all a list of what we've done over the last 2 years in terms of transparency. And it's significant amount of opportunities to get public input. We also, for the first time this last year, did a community-wide survey. We'll be continuing that. You'll notice it is one of the strategies in the strategic plan to continue doing that. Our recommendation is every 2 years to give us time to implement what we learned in the last survey. But lots of data, lots of anecdotal feedback, information from you all. We are implementing an employee survey as well. So that'll give us even more inputs for next year's strategic plan. Next, we do a SWOT analysis and look at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we do this, it's a roll up. So it starts at the department level. And they get information from their departments about what they think our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. Then we come to the leadership team. We discuss them, pare them down, and then, as you know, those are then brought to the council during your work sessions on the strategic plan. Then from there, we set our goals and our metrics, and metrics being how are we going to determine if we're successful? You know, that first slide where I showed you our percent complete, that's a big part of it. But also there's a lot of KPIs, key performance indicators, that the departments have implemented that are really the ultimate measurements of are all of these things working, as is this community-wide survey. Then from after we've done that, we identify our strategies. And in the photo to the right, you can see where we had a whole meeting to identify strategies. Then I took those back to the leadership team again to take to their departments to see what are we missing? What have we not thought of? What are we suggesting that is going to be impossible to do? And so, as you know, you all came back together and prioritized which ones you felt we really needed to focus on and which ones needed to be deleted from the plan. After that, you adopt your strategic plan. Then after that, the staff does monthly reporting to council. That occurs through your monthly report, like it's in your agenda packet this month, but it also happens through the project matrix, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then we do continuous reevaluation. Just because it's on the plan doesn't mean it has to happen or it has to happen the way we thought it would happen. There's a lot of permeations of this, and we call this a living document, that as we learn new things, it can evolve and flow, and that's how we try to treat it. Okay, next slide, Shel. So one of the things that I really wanted to try to stress was, what role does this plan play in our organizations? Lots of people do strategic plans and then they get put on a shelf and it's a little bit of an abstract idea. And fortunately, that's not the case in our organization. I think we've demonstrated that over the last 2 years. But the role it plays is, you can see the strategic plan in the middle there in the blue bubble. And it's guided by the general plan. And then the strategic plan guides the CIP, the capital improvement plan, which you'll see today on your tentative budget adoption. So we have a 5-year CIP, and that arrow really kind of goes back and forth because it drives the CIP, but the CIP also has input into the strategic plan. So it kind of flows back and forth. And then of course the budget, things that you guys have determined that are priorities in the strategic plan show up in the budget, and how are we going to implement those if we don't have funding for them? And then going down, you see the strategic plan creates the project matrix. So every 2 years, I take the strategic plan, we translate that into a big project matrix, and that's how we track every single strategy in the strategic plan. And they're color coded by goal area. We track the percentage complete. This is also where we prioritize the projects. And staff and I work together to set a priority on a particular strategy. But then that report goes to council, usually quarterly, and that's their opportunity to tell me, I don't agree with what you all are saying here. We think this should be a higher priority. And, you know, strangely, it just doesn't happen a lot because I think we're getting a lot of feedback from you all continuously about what's important. So I think we have a pretty good sense of it, but occasionally someone will say, why do you have that marked as a D? Because a D doesn't get a lot of attention. And A, we're going to see big progress on that project. Okay. Next slide. So this is actually just a screenshot of one page of the project matrix. It varies in length depending on what other things we've added, but usually it's at least 7 to 10 pages. These are 11. Oh, she's got hers. Look at it. It's 11 by 17 and 7 to 10 pages long. And like I said, this is where we use this to drive all of our activities. And then truly, this is what we do. So if it's not on this list, and unless it's an emergency or something brand new, which we then would bring to council, this is really what staff is focused on. And what makes this so wonderful is there's not a lot of questions about what are we supposed to be doing. Staff knows what we're supposed to be doing because of the strategic plan. And this is the tool we use to track it. And those little green shaded areas are just indicating the percent of that project that's complete or not. So each time we send it to council, they can quickly at a glance see where we're at with the particular project. And then when I'm updating it, usually the comments off to the right turn red for the new comments. So at a glance, you can see what has changed. And we use this during our weekly updates that we send to council. We do one-on-ones with all of our team members. And so this is, you know, kind of guides those discussions. We do our monthly reports, and that's how we kind of track our incremental progress on this, we call it project matrix. The other thing that gets put on this matrix is every single CIP is listed separately on the matrix as well. So we always know where we're at with each CIP project. And it's very easy to lose track of a project because you're focusing on something else. And this allows us to continue to recenter ourselves and know what we need to work on. So the vision did change slightly. So I know the mayor normally reads the vision in every meeting, but the council did ask for a slight tweak to it. So I'd like to go ahead and read it just so everybody could hear and the nuance of the change is very small, but I think it was great. The town of Clarkdale capitalizes upon our unique history, proximity to the Verde River, and small town charm. We cultivate a safe environment where residents and businesses can thrive. We sustainably enhance our infrastructure, support the arts and education, and develop recreational opportunities to create a bright future for our entire community. So that's our vision, and that's supposed to be an aspirational statement that this is what we aspire to be. And I think with this strategic plan, we're on the right track. So the mission has not changed, and this is a statement of what we do. The town of Clarkdale serves the community by providing amenities, infrastructure, services, and public safety to enhance quality of life. We are stewards of our history while we sustainably and resiliently plan for the future with an emphasis on community engagement and transparency. That's our mission statement. Our values were established, I think 2 years ago, and staff had a big part in kind of finessing this. I think council gave some general, here's what we would like to focus on, but one staff member, I think it was Randi, came up with the acronym COPPER, which is super apropos. But basically it stands for being customer focused, open, transparent, and equitable, preserving our history, charm, and environment, planning for a sustainable future, economic and social resiliency, and resourceful and innovative. And these actually, each one of these, the COPPER, are on our annual review forms now. So each employee who is reviewed as it relates to these values. So it's very a part of our culture. So our goals, as I said, did not change. Goal area 1 is focused on our history and preserving and celebrating it. Goal area 2 is quality of life. A big part of that is public safety, but there are other elements as well. Goal area 3 is focused on parks and recreation, and there's always a lot of talk about putting that as part of quality of life, because typically it is. But because we do so much in parks and have so much going on, we break it out as a separate goal. Okay, goal area 4 has to do with business attraction and retention and capitalizing upon tourism that we already have. Goal area 5 has to do with maintaining and growing our quality infrastructure that's sustainable and resilient. And then goal area 6 is really organizational development. We have a lot of strategies in the other 5 areas, but how do we make sure we have the capacity, which is money, staff, policies, all of those types of things to make sure we can do the first 5 goal areas. So I am not going to go through every strategy. Like I said, there's copies over there. And then I also had included the entire booklet in our in the posting. And then this will be posted separately once we get to a point where we can adopt it. But this is basically what it looks like. Each goal area has between 9 and 21 strategies assigned to it. It's a lot of strategies, but as you can see, we make that level of progress when we attack these things. And again, it's a living document, and we have the key performance indicators to measure our success. So I am more than happy to answer any questions. I know council has seen this. We've had 2 dedicated work sessions to strategic planning, plus they've been sent drafts as I've made changes so that they know what has evolved. So I know that you guys have seen it a lot and there's been a lot of discussion, but I know that there probably are still questions. So I'm happy to do that. And then maybe we could take public comment
Yep.
too.
Yeah, I think let's have questions from council and then we'll open up to the public for all of you to comment on. Lisa?
Thank you. So back at the beginning, when you were showing percentage complete and in progress, you said there were certain ones that just didn't make sense anymore. Can you give an example of that?
Let me think. Mayor, you've got your matrix. What's on 0?
Didn't know there was.
I know it has.
You want me to check? Let's see what's on 0.
There's a few things.
I think, let's say if we take in the first goal area, most of them had to do, the 2 areas that I see 0 right away are creating and maintaining inventories for historic projects, sites, landscapes, signage, and other historic features. And that's an ongoing, so it means it just has not gotten started.
Well, I also, if I could just interrupt on that one, because it's a great example. Thanks for asking that question. So both of those 2 that are
Mhm.
not started are both things that HPC, they're in their strategic plans. So that's another thing we do is any boards
Right.
that have strategic plans, we roll up their things into this. And that's on theirs, but they've been very focused on the historic preservation ordinance. So they just haven't formally, I know they have it in different places, but they haven't formally taken on that
Right.
project yet. So that's a great example of
That
one
was,
where
yeah.
it's just something that the board hasn't gotten to. Ruth, that's correct, right?
It's not easy to find 0%.
I apologize. I can go through my own copy. But I thought it might be important for other people to understand what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the value of this is us being able to see real easily where all our projects are and how we're working on our goals. So it's a reference document I keep with me, and it's updated pretty much quarterly, so it's really up-to-date information of where we're at. So,
Thank you.
okay, any other questions? Marnie?
In goal area number 2, strategy number 9 is engage with Yavapai College to enhance community involvement. Remind me, is that specifically like the water certifications, or does it encompass more than that?
It encompasses a lot more than that. Actually, the method that we do is the mayor, myself, and the vice mayor meet with the president quarterly. And we talk about, what's going on with the board, what's going on at the school, what impacts us, how can we be more involved? We also have Toby Kane, who's a Clarkdale resident who is on the board. And so we talk with Toby about, hey, what's going on? What input can you give us? We also have a mayor's managers call that occurs twice monthly that the mayor leads and I attend. And all of the mayors in the region attend along with their town managers or city managers, as well as the college, the deans, 2 or 3 people from the college attend, the hospital system, the Forest Service. So it's really a robust, great meeting, but that's kind of how we're strengthening those relationships so that we know what's going on and we can give feedback, like, that we asked them to consider starting a water school because we need people trained to be able to handle water. So, and I think there's been a few other programs that we've suggested and offered to help with. So that's how we go about that goal area. But that's one that would probably never be complete. It's ongoing.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments before we open up to the public?
Mine's just a comment, and I've said it before. I absolutely love how all of the key documents intertwine with each other and create a plan that helps us move forward. You always say you can't get anywhere without a map, and this is a great map. This combined with the capital improvement project and then, of course, the annual reports results on what we've accomplished with the strategic plan. And, some people may notice that with every agenda we have with an item that comes up, it ties back exactly back to what the goal area plans were. So I just love how this is an all-encompassing, not to overuse the word, but strategy and a plan going forward.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And sometimes we do get that question, like, why did the council not ask you guys a million questions? And I know you all know, but for members of the public, it's because very, very, very few of the items that come on the agenda are a surprise. Usually they're in their strategic plan. They've been getting weekly updates from staff, and they're getting a quarterly update on the project matrix, and they see the budget update every month. So usually they're very aware and familiar with any item that is on the agenda, which is why you don't see a lot of dissension and, questioning, is because you guys know what's going on and why it's there. And you do see that correlation. Every agenda item says what strategy in the strategic plan this is addressing. And so it all makes sense. But, I do get that question sometimes.
Go ahead.
I do have an item I want to add.
Okay.
In our strategic planning session, one of the things that Susan and I have been working with Friends of the Verde River on is doing invasive plant removal on the 108 acres that we lease from Freeport McMoran. So that probably goes under Parks and Rec. And so I think we can call that like partnership with Friends of the Verde River for invasive plant removal or something to that effect.
Yes,
Right.
I've got it.
And I thought of another one, which hopefully will come to me. And I guess what I am uncomfortable with in this process is hearing it be called the council's strategic plan. Because it is not the council's strategic plan, it is the town's strategic plan. And we have held 2 work sessions that are open to the public, and anybody and everybody is welcome to come to those and give input and ask for a strategy to be added or ask for clarification on a strategy. And so I guess I just want to make that clear that yes, probably the 5 of us here and the staff have had the greatest amount of input on this process, but this is a community process. And just, I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago? I don't even remember when it was that we sat in the reading room for like 3 or 4 hours and went over this piece by piece and pulled out things and added things and changed wording. We changed the language on the history of Clarkdale. So it really is a community process. And so if you didn't get a chance to participate in this time, then hopefully next time around, we'll have more people in the room, because that just makes the experience and the documents and the goals more valid for everybody to feel them. So I guess that's a call out to our community to say, come and participate, because this is our strategic plan. This is the town's strategic plan. So, and I echo what Vice Mayor Hunsetter said, that, you know, as somebody who was an administrator in her profession, it is rare to see all of these pieces tie so well together and so clearly together, and you can see how they're interdependent on each other. And that as a community, for us to move forward, the better we can have this kind of a document and the better we can track what we're doing, the more effective we're going to be. So that matrix is daunting to look at, because it's literally a 10 or 11 page document, but it is really wonderful to see, because it does let us see the progress that we're making that's based on the community's strategic plan. So
Barney.
that was long, but
Thank you. So Councilmember Jones, I think you make some very important points, and I want to draw our attention to one that I am most proud that is on here. I don't know what's going to come of it, but we know that there have been so many conversations about the revitalization of downtown. So goal area 4, number 16, is to evaluate the costs and benefits of purchasing a downtown property. We are listening. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what we can do about it, but we're not going to sit here and not investigate. We're going to look, we're going to see what the opportunities are, what the options are, because people have told us time and time again that that is important. So you're right. It's not our plan. It is the community's plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, council members, for all your comments, and I agree wholeheartedly with what everybody said. And now I want to ask those of you in the audience to make comment, and I know we have one already. Todd, come on up and give us your thoughts.
Yes, I'm Todd Green, and I certainly happen to have one of those buildings, and that makes me a little nervous, because that sounds like the first step towards some type of eminent domain. So I'm a little concerned about that. And but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. This is an amazing strategic plan. I mean, the organization of this, the presentation of it, I mean, it's nothing short of phenomenal. It's very much carefully tailored exactly to Clarkdale. It takes our specific geography, our specific issues, our specific problems, our street names, our everything. My thoughts on this are, it also has, in general terms, the vision of it, the city building. This is something that there are probably over 60,000 towns, cities, and municipalities in this country. So this plan, you know, granted, you know, what you've done is very unique and special directly for us, but the generality of it wouldn't just apply to hundreds of other towns or thousands of other towns, but literally tens of thousands of other towns. However, if you flip that around, you've paid you make a little bit of homage to tourism. There's probably only a few hundred of those towns that would have the choice and the decision that we're giving up. And that's the choice to be a vacation destination, to really look at the specialness of the town, to make our vision to be an artist community. That's the kind of thing that enhances a vacation destination. An artist community could also help solve the housing crisis, because those can be the kinds of places that are affordable, one story, that both working class and artists would want to live in. And we have that unique choice. And I know that we have some staff members that are so good that if that was their direction, if they were given that mission, said, build us an artist community, put us on the map as that kind of vacation destination, I know of a couple of them that would 1000% get that job done. And so I really appreciate you listening to my comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hold on. We have Amanda. If you'd like to speak, please do.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Amanda Arnold. I live in Clarkdale. I just wanted to point out, while I think every agenda item is important, I would have liked to see this one been at one of the evening meetings so more people could participate, since it does directly impact our lives. That is what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the things, and we have talked about it, is some of the best mechanisms, is finding mechanisms to garner more outreach to our residents on what is the strategic plan, what's involved in it, and how can they give input to it, not just coming to our sessions, but are there other ways? So I think this is evolving. This is our second one. So we are really looking at how can we garner some more community comment on this plan. But thank you so much, Amanda. Any other questions, comments? I'm seeing nobody coming up to the microphone, so this is an item that is up for approval. We have comments from all the council members, a good presentation from our town manager. We have seen this. I agree with Laura. I think we just forgot to add the one in there that it's the invasive plant removal, so we will add that to that if it's everybody's agreement to do that, because that's an important project along the river. If there's no further discussion about this, I'd entertain a motion to approve this plan.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the plan with the stipulation that Councilmember Jones added at least some consideration thereof, but it looks great.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded by Councilmember O'Neill and Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to approve the 2024-26 strategic plan with the addition of the item of invasive plant removal to the goal, the one that deals with park, has most of the park and recreation. Goal 4, is it goal 4?
I think it's,
Okay, goal 3, excuse me. Okay, are we clear with the motion? Okay, hearing no other questions, all those in favor of the motion to approve the 2024-26 strategic plan with the addition, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you so much. And as we said, this is a living document. So if things happen throughout the year, they will be added to it, new projects. And we will be tracking what we're working on. So with that, let's move on to the next item 6B, which is the financial operations guide. FOG, as we call it, revisions. We're here to discuss it, consider and act upon revisions to our FOG. And Finance Director Julie is here. Goucher will be presenting.
Thank you. So we discussed during budget time that we had a couple of suggested changes to the FOG. One of those was to increase our procurement requirement to go out to bid from 75,000 to 100,000. And another one that we discussed was targeting a contingency equal to 6 months of expenditures in our larger funds. And that's really to protect us from in Arizona, where we can't access in the event of an emergency, our fund balance unless it's actually in the budget. So this is not to create slush funds, it's to create contingencies that won't be used unless they come before council and are discussed with everybody. So the financial operations guide update that you have before you does include those changes. And then because we were updating it, went through the whole document, and there's a couple of other changes as well that you see. And one was we added some safety enhancements in the travel and training policy just for seatbelts and rules about not texting while driving. We also updated the cash receipts section just due to a new credit card processor that we have. So it changed the timeline in our processes a little bit there. Let's see. We added some language just to remove, we had included the IRS mileage rate, but that increases periodically. So we just took out the dollar amount, and a small update to the credit card account user agreement. So, and if you had any questions on any other changes you saw, I'm happy to answer.
Yes.
Thank you for all your work on this, Julie. It seems like most of it is just kind of updating things that have changed. When it comes to increasing the minimum bidding requirements, how many transactions do you think approximately are gonna not come before us moving from 100,000 from the 75?
It's a good question. I mean, we try and use the state procurement, as much as we can when we're getting to those dollar amounts, because you can get better prices at that level. I mean, the classic example we use is with our police cars, because those are right in between that range. So that said, I'm not sure they wouldn't still come before council. I mean, we'd still be required to get 3 quotes. I don't know, but I'll let Manager Guthrie speak.
Yeah, what Julie's saying is exactly right. Really, this was driven by vehicle purchases, and to have to do an RFP in order to buy a police vehicle is really not nimble at all. And they're very hard to get right now. I know that sounds weird, but we had one on the books last year and we couldn't buy it because finding Tahoes right now is, a police equipped Tahoe is very difficult. So when we buy them, or when we find them, we need to be able to buy them and not go through a 3-month RFP process. And, in the past, that sounded like a lot of money, 75,000, and it still is. But unfortunately, that is what a vehicle costs nowadays, a police vehicle. So, but other things, I think we found this when we did Lower Tapco, the gravel at Lower Tapco. It was starting, we thought it was going to fall in that range that we were going to have to put out an RFP to go buy gravel. And that's not a good use of time or energy, and it really slows down the process. So now it's just adjusting that to what really expenses are and what we believe the intention is. And, if it's not in the budget, we have to bring it to you all anyway. But if it's budgeted and you've said, yes, go buy a vehicle, this gives us the means to do it. But Julie made an excellent point, is most of our purchases right now are being done through JOCS, Gordian, state contracts, those types of procurement, because they're more efficient and we get way better deals. But we need that nimbleness to be able to buy vehicles and other things that we need to do in a much more quick fashion than we are able to now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Julie on this? I mean, this is pretty straightforward. We were prepared to see these amendments to our financial operations guide. So because especially the procurement policy of increasing the minimum bidding requirements, because we had talked about, the issues around that and trying to be, as you said, nimble. So That's really important. Yes, Laura.
I just have one question. I was looking at the dates where different things have gotten updated at different times. Will this be like an annual thing that you do that every year as we do the budget, the fog gets looked at in that same
Typically-
time period, just so then we know that
Yep.
consistently that
And once in a
will be-
while, something will come up outside of cycle. If you remember, the last time was an out of cycle. It was like maybe it was 6 months ago or something. And we had done a major overhaul just to clean up all the old formatting and update all the language. And so that was a huge change. Now I think you'll probably just see annual updates. It is part of our budget process to review the financial operations guide and make any suggested changes. So.
And I think, well, a good example of that is not just the 75, but it was the budget policy around targeting a contingency equal to 6 months of expenditures for the general fund. We didn't have that, but that's a practice that we feel comfortable with having. Julie brought it to us, so it'd be like the revision. It wasn't there before, it is now. Good point. As we learn more, as we get more comfortable with how the flow of our dollars and what we feel is a good safety net for us, and gives us the flexibility to use the dollars that are coming in appropriate ways. This is a good policy that was added, so.
And
I
we had
appreciate-
actually had a lot of questions about surplus property and how we can get rid of it and what we can do.
Correct.
So one of the changes too, I forgot to mention, but was we just took the language right out of the ordinance and put it in under the procurement section for disposal of town assets so that it would be a quicker way, because I think more of our town staff have access to the FOG. Everybody has access to the ordinances, but this is usually the quick reference guide. So that's another
It's
example
like-
of just an improvement.
Yeah, it's like cleaning your closets,
Right.
right? Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, will you take a motion?
Yes, I will.
Recommend that we approve, or council will approve the revisions to the financial operation guide as written for sections 3, 4, 5, 7, and exhibit A and D.
If you'd like to just do the document in whole, that will cover everything.
that'll
Just
cover
if
it.
there were other minor changes.
Okay, as noted.
As noted. Okay, is there a second to it?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Hunsetter and seconded by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to approve the revisions of the financial operations guide as presented. Any further questions or comments? Yeah.
I'm so delighted you're nitpicky. I really am.
Wonder how the staff feel.
Okay, any further comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. All opposed, hearing none, motion carried. Julie, thank you so much and for bringing this forward, and we're updated for another year. Great. Let's move on to item C, which is the adoption of a tentative budget for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. This is our opportunity to discuss, consider, and act upon the adoption of this budget for the fiscal year 2000 ending 2025 in the amount of 43,695,019. No, if you look down at the motion, it is 43. I've got two numbers here. Because I think it's the higher one. Of which $21,130,947 is grant funding. So that's what the tentative budget looks like. Before I turn this over to Town Manager Guthrie and Finance Director Julie Goucher, I just wanted to make a couple sort of comments. This has been 6 months in the planning. With this town managers and staff, the council has had 2 public work sessions. I figured we spent close to 10 hours on the budget in our work sessions. The proposed budget has been posted on the town website for at least a couple of months. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, we were looking at.
At the
the
number?
On my draft, it's the same number, so I'm just trying to figure out, is yours different? Yeah, 42695-019. Yeah.
Okay, so you
your
guys wrote
script wrong?
something, you scripted me wrong.
I'm sorry, but the agenda is correct.
Yeah, Duran, I'm sorry.
Okay, and I'm sorry.
I'm
I wasn't
looking at two
listening to your
different numbers.
question.
I'm looking at two different numbers.
No, you're, okay.
Okay,
The
Um,
agenda's the right number.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The proposed budget has been has been posted on the town website at least for a couple of months or longer.
Julie, when did we actually post it? We've had several work sessions
Mhm.
that the public's been invited to, but it's usually around this last meeting, and then this meeting is when it's legally supposed to be posted
right.
after we adopt the tentative budget. But I
Right.
think we've had it up there now for,
Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah,
preliminary.
preliminary budget. At the last council meeting, we had a very thorough presentation by the council. And the community had an opportunity to comment then. Cottonwood Journal Extra wrote a very nice article on our budget and the process. Tonight is this afternoon is our first formal step in the adoption of the FY25 budget. At what we have here, and Julie and town manager will go through it, is the presentation. It's how it has to be presented in the state budget format, which is a little bit different than what we've seen. So it meets their requirements. We hope that everybody's had an opportunity to look at the budget at some time over the last few months. So tonight, this afternoon, as Julie and Susan are going to do a shorter abbreviated presentation, but you, the public, will have an opportunity to ask questions following their presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the two of you to do your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle's bringing up the PowerPoint for us. And short and abbreviated is hard for us to you could do the motion. So, I think we're a page too far, Michelle.
You moving it, Shell, or should I?
Okay,
Oh, there we
there we are. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We are very excited to get to this step in the budget approval process. As you know, we sped up the process this year and started earlier because we really wanted to get the budget adopted before the next fiscal year starts. That was a very strange thing to me when I got here, and I think is Julie as well. So if we can go ahead and go to the next slide, you'll just see that that slide just outlines the council's names and and my name. So we can go ahead and skip to the third slide now. One more. Okay, so the budget timeline, as you know, we start budget preparations back in December and January, which is when we originally start passing out budget information to the departments and asking them to prepare their submissions. In February, we receive property values from the county. We also get our revenue estimates from the state. So we're starting at that point to look at the revenue side of the equation. And February and March is when Julie and I meet with each department head to go over what where they're at with their current budgets and what they're going to be asking for in the coming year. And although we don't do a formal zero-based budgeting process, it's very close to that in that every single line item is reevaluated and to ensure that it's really on track with what we're trying to do with our strategic plan and our general plan. So on our draft documents, you all will remember that we actually have a column of what does every line item in the budget correlate to in the strategic plan. So that all happens during February and March. In April, we do council work sessions. Those are open to the public, and we also address any fee increases if they're going to be applicable. In May, we do a public hearing and the council adoption of the tentative budget. That's where we're at right now. We also publish it in the newspaper and online. Then in June and July, we do our truth and taxation notices. They're published. Public hearing for final budget and adoption of the resolution for the property tax rate. And then we do another meeting with the tax levy and a rate ordinance. So, again, it's a 6-month process, easy. The next slide is just a summary of our vision, mission, and values, and I'm not going to go over them because we just went over them as part of the strategic plan, but they have been updated. And the next slide, again, is our goal areas. We just went over that in the strategic plan, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to turn the next slide over to Julie.
Okay, this is just one update since our last budget work session, and that was for the addition of a capital project for Luke Lane Road improvements. No dollar amount assigned at this point, so you'll see in the updated capital plan, it just has it to be determined. But the town is seeking grant funding for that project, so we didn't want to leave it off the list.
And if you recall, we just got Luke Lane or started the process of getting Luke Lane in the last meeting. So that's why it's being added late. We've been working on that land swap for 2 years. Ruth saying 3 years. So for a very long time, but it finally came to fruition at your last meeting. Ergo, we're adding it to the capital improvement project.
Before we get into the budget assumptions and highlights, I just want to mention that when I was double checking the number that you are reading, Mayor, for the 42,695,019, I looked quickly at the state report and it should actually be 43,695,019. So I'm very glad we looked at that. It has been on the website. The whole budget is on the website. The preliminary state report is on the website. As of today, the tentative budget with the notice of public hearing. So I'm confident that we're still in clear waters, but I just wanted to make that correction. Apologize for that.
Thank you.
Lots of numbers.
Yes. All right, so starting off with our budget highlights for the fiscal year, and this is ending June 30, 2025. Then I know that many of you in the audience have listened to this entire presentation, and I know you guys have seen this many, many times. So I'm just going to try and do a couple of the highlights, and then just feel free to jump in and stop me and ask for extra details if we want. So starting out with the revenue, we did budget proposed decrease in the property tax rate, and that was from 1.415 to 1.344. We've been doing really well with interest income this year, as we've been reporting in our monthly finance reports. We're at about 1.1 million right now. About 300,000 of that we're able to use for our bridge funds. It's what our bridge money has been earning, Bitter Creek Bridge. And then about $500,000 is for the general fund. But since there's no promise that those numbers are going to continue to be strong, and since we're going to be using our dollars that we have invested, we are budgeting about 50% of the projection for this year. We are utilizing fund balance in many different funds to help offset the cost of our infrastructure improvements. And again, this budget doesn't include the rental tax revenue, and that's because obviously at the state level, everybody's probably heard by now, but as of January 1st, 2025, that we will no longer have that income. On the expenditure side, our pension contributions had a slight decrease for both our public safety and our general employees, and our health and dental increases were pretty modest at 6% and 3%. Let's see. And then I'll just highlight that we're proposing a transfer of just about $2 million for capital improvements, and that's from fund balance. That does include about 800,000 if we need it in the event of emergencies on our wastewater fund. And then finally, our capital improvement identified $24 million of projects, and which are proposed to be funded mainly through existing fund balance and also grants. And on our next slide, we just have the breakout of our revenue and expenditures so that you can see the broadest categories, and it's fairly self-explanatory, so we'll save some time on that one. Oh, sure, see?
On the revenue side, there is one thing that I think is going to impact us very positively, and that's the opening of Tawaki Inn, which will coincide with our fiscal year, which is July 1st. So where would revenues from that
So that would come
operation
in-
show up in our revenues here?
Yeah, primarily in our local sales tax income, and we have some slides on that, so we're hoping to see some nice increases there. We'll also have some from the construction
Mhm.
of that property. We just are not sure. We don't know quite how to figure how much that's going to be at this
Yeah,
point.
I just.
So
yeah, I
we
didn't
didn't, we were fairly conservative in our budgeting, but that is expected to be a nice source of income for the town.
Yeah, right now, we'll get sales tax that's attributed to it, but we also will get hotel occupancy tax.
Mm.
And the way we use hotel occupancy tax right now is 100% of it, we budget towards marketing. And so that's how we've been paying for our, the match that we get with the state for our tourism marketing. So next year, when we feel the impact of what Tawaki is going to bring, we can meet and decide, is that how we want to continue to use those dollars or not?
Just assuming there's a restaurant and a gift shop, and if they have
Maybe some.
tours and different things, I mean, there could be a nice variety of
Yeah.
income for the town.
And the bed tax has to be used for tourism?
That's
correct,
That's
yeah.
what we've determined right
But is
now.
that, I thought that was a state directive, kind of.
No,
Actually, in Texas it is, and I tried to look for it the other day and I couldn't find it in Arizona state law.
I
it's
want to say
not.
it's not, but it was a town, I believe when I looked at it, it
But
wasn't
it's
state,
town.
but it was a town decision.
It was a
in
town
some form.
decision, so yes, and it's not state.
Okay, no,
state-
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you, Julie.
So this slide is our busiest slide probably. It's a lot to look at, but it is an important slide because we look at the prior year in our first column all the way to the left, prior actual results, and then the current year budget in the next column, and then our proposed budget for fiscal 25. And we're looking at the dollar change here and the percent change. And overall, you can see the percentage is 22%, which sounds extremely high, but that includes everything, contingencies and transfers and fund balance use. So if we just are looking at operations, then we see our budget is increasing 8.8%.
Thank you.
And that does include a 5% COLA market adjustment for the employees. And then all of those benefit projections that we talked about, property and liability. So a lot of those, additional contractual costs. And we are, I'll just point out some of the higher percentage changes like our fund balance appropriation. But as I mentioned before, that's really to fund our infrastructure projects. And we're fortunate to have a very healthy fund balance. So we can do that. And we had a couple of departments that did have double-digit increases, but for good reason. One is in the town clerk's budget at 10.8%, and that was because we have an election this year, so we needed to budget for that. Additionally, you'll see in finance and parks and recreation, we had about 10% increases, but that was actually just the result of health insurance changes by employees in those departments. And in our police department, we added a new officer, and we actually added that officer in 2024. But as you know, we had included that in our contingency. And so this year it's up in the department. And so you'll see about a 10% increase there. Public Works also saw about a 14% increase, and that's primarily because we are planning to outsource janitorial services this year. So we increased the contract services for that. And then, of course, our largest change again is in the contingency and transfers. And again, it all goes back to the planning for unexpected events and capital projects. And the next slide this is just our largest source of revenue, which we were just talking about being our local sales tax. And all this slide really shows is just how the over every month that we have fluctuating revenues. You see that in your monthly reports. So we'll just go to the next slide, which has a breakdown of the local sales taxes by category. And this gets to what you were just talking about. So our largest sources of income in the sales tax are from construction and prime and speculative both, and then followed by remote retail and amusements. And you can see the residential rental just off right of center, and that's the income that we're projecting to lose. And
And
I
then
don't know
you
if you
see
wanna
the
add anything
hotel
else there on that
motel
one?
too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's where, Councilmember Jones, the hotel motel is broken out as a separate sales tax item there. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. And then on this slide, I always like to just remind people to either buy something in Clarkdale, #1 priority to support local businesses, or to order it online. Because if you order it online and it's shipped to Clarkdale, we get the sales tax. If you go and buy it in Cottonwood, we don't get the sales tax. Sorry, Cottonwood, but I'm going to make a play to try and encourage everybody. I think we started getting a lot of stuff delivered to town hall. The other day was somebody's like, why is somebody having something delivered here? I said, because I've been asking everybody, buy your stuff on Amazon and have it shipped here, or whatever business. So anyway, it does make you'll notice that it's a very big part of our budget, and it's really critical that we protect that and try to grow that, because helps relieve some of that pressure from property tax. And that's the way that our property tax will continue to go down as our retail increases. So,
This slide shows our enterprise fund revenues, so in addition to the general fund, we manage these 4 enterprise funds, which are cemetery, sanitation or trash, wastewater, and water. And this slide just shows the operations only, not contingencies, not transfers and use of fund balance. And it takes the fiscal 23 actual, the fiscal 24 projected, and the fiscal 25 budgets. So you can see there is a dip in the projection for fiscal 24 versus the budget for fiscal 25 in wastewater, which is that third one over. And that is due to timing on development projects that are in process. And then the other side of the house are the expenditures for the enterprise funds. And again, these figures are shown without the transfers and contingencies and capital, so we're just looking at operating. The water fund increases are primarily the result of additional staff and professional service that we've added. And as I mentioned, the last time we did this presentation, when I started just a couple of years ago, we only had 2 employees in our water wastewater fund. So now we have 5 and we're doing a little bit better, but I just think it's worth noting. You would expect those numbers to increase over time.
I always like to point out on this slide though, because every time I look at it, I'm like, what is with that big old jump? We're not adding that much. But you're kind of looking at a little bit of a different thing when you look at the projected budget versus the actual.
Mhm.
You know, when we're looking at that, we know at this point in the year, oh, we're not getting a lot of development. So there's a big part of water and wastewater's budget are the fees for capacity and for meters. So when we're not getting that development, that projected number goes way down versus, and then correspondingly, so do the expenditures. So it's always important to realize, like, are you looking at actual budgeted? Because the budgeted to budgeted is much more similar, but the projected or the actual can be very different than what we're going to budget for next year, because we hope to see more development.
Guthrie's going to handle this slide, but I'll just point out, this is where you can see the 43,000 at the bottom in that note there of the 43,695.019, because this is all of our funds together.
Okay, so I mean, the only reason that we include this is just because sometimes it's hard to remember that we do have a lot of other funds. We don't just have general fund, water, wastewater, but we have all these other, the court enhancement fund, opioid fund, donations is a really important fund, streets, HERF, which is what's paying for the big Broadway Road project right now. So all of these have specific revenue sources, and most of them have very designated uses for those funds. So for example, we can't use HERF funds on a park. HERF funds can only be used on road improvement projects. So depending on the source of the revenue is how it must be used. Okay, this slide, we include this just because I always get a lot of questions about, oh, your property tax rate and who gets what money. This pie chart illustrates everyone who gets money from your property tax payment. And you can see that the town of Clarkdale only gets about 11% of your total property tax payment. But a lot of other people get more than we do from your property taxes. The community college gets 12%. Yavapai County 13, Mingus Union High School 17%, Clarkdale Jerome School District 19%, Verde Valley Fire District 26%. So more than double of your property tax payment goes to Verde Valley Fire versus to the town of Clarkdale. And I just like to point it out because the amount that is collected in property tax does not even cover the police department's budget. So it just kind of puts it into perspective of how we use the funds and how important, based upon that, all of our other revenue streams, i.e. sales tax, is to the town. When you think about that, property tax doesn't even cover the police department's budget, so.
So in that same line of thought, it's just always interesting to see what numbers we're talking about. And in the fiscal year we're in now, it's 639,000 is the amount of revenue that property tax represents. And that is less than 10% of our overall budget. The current year, we had the rate, as I mentioned, of 1.415. We're proposing a levy of 667,000, which will be a rate of 1.3443. And this slide also just shows we take the calculated allowable levy divided by the net assessed value per $100 and then derive the proposed rate of the 1.3.
So this slide really just focuses on all of the planning that we're doing in the background. And a lot of this is captured in the strategic plan, but it plays a really important part in our budgeting because that's one thing we're really trying to do is to not just make here and now decisions, but to set us up for future success. So you can see we had an 89A corridor study. We had retail strategies and tourism marketing studies. Fleet management planning, we're working on that right now to better understand how and when we need to be replacing vehicles. Right now, we're in the middle of our wastewater and water master planning, which will really help us in next year's budget to lay out what CIP projects do we need to plan for the future. The Trails Master Plan that Parks and Rec just finished directly impacts both the strategic plan and the budget. We just finished a historic building assessment to look at the condition of all of our campus and what monies do we need to set aside to make sure that they are preserved and, taken well care of. We finished our pavement management plan this year for improving our roads. And you all know that you adopted that. And we are, I think, budgeting $1.6 million in this next fiscal year to do improvements to our road surfaces. So that takes us to our goal areas and our CIP. And I'm going to do an abbreviated review of these and just name a few of them. And Julie, I don't have my copy with who does what, so tell me when I need to stop. So the first goal area is our history and historic preservation. So you can see we have 4 different strategies that are on our CIP, including 45,000 for town building improvements. We have Public Works and Community Development. We're replacing their windows and their roof and painting the building at $200,000. In goal area 2, which is quality of life, we've moved the contingent officer into their actual department budget. And just in case you weren't involved in the budget process last year, the reason we did that was because it allowed us to go to 24-hour coverage. Up until that point, Clarkdale did not have 24-hour police coverage. Now we do. We also have put down for police department vehicles and remote connectivity for $256,000, and also Centerville Road remediation. We bought 3 parcels in Centerville in order to allow for Centerville Road to punch through all the way to 89A. Unfortunately, there's some remediation that needs to occur on those properties, and we have filed for a grant for that, but we went ahead and budgeted for it just in case we didn't receive the grant. In goal area 3, which is our parks, rec, and cultural activities, again, we budgeted 2.5 million. 1.5 of that is grant funded. The other million is out of fund balance for Selma Mangini Park renovation. Those will break ground this summer. We have budgeted 225,000 for the completion of the gazebo bandstand project. That project, we finally received the plans from the engineer. They're with the contractor right now assessing them, and he'll let us know if we need to contract for more than this. And we do have money set aside in case it does cost more than we planned. Let's see, Clarkdale Parkway sidewalks, we budgeted 900,000, but we are applying for a grant for that. Still mine?
Last one.
Okay. The economy is goal number 4, strengthen the common economy. You can see we budgeted $6.6 million to finish the Bitter Creek Bridge, and that is fully grant funded. We also have the 42,000 for tourism marketing, and again, that's directly the hotel occupancy tax revenues. And then we have 55,000 for economic development initiatives. Part of that is to continue our contract with retail strategies. We feel like we're making a lot of progress in that area. And then I'll turn goal area 5 over to Julie.
And goal area 5 is relating to infrastructure. So the next 4 slides will highlight the investment that what we have in our infrastructure, starting with the general infrastructure improvements. As Guthrie mentioned, we have the pavement management program of $1.6 million this year. There's some cemetery drainage improvements that we're looking for grants for, and that's about $1 million. There's a couple other smaller ones, traffic engineering study, and some more alleyway improvements to continue that project. And on the next slide, we have some wastewater infrastructure improvements. There's some SCADA, which is our external monitoring system upgrades, $75,000. The largest one on this list is our Third North Sewer realignment that we're estimating at about $750,000. And we also are looking to dredge the ponds at the wastewater, and that's $135,000. And the next slide starts water improvements, and we have our groundwater well and treatment, which we are looking for grants for 2.5 million, and actually part of it is already funded by grants. And the EPA lead and copper rule compliance, 250,000. And continuing the next slide with some more water improvements. We have Haskell Springs. We're doing tank coating as well as a tank connector. That's 250,000 and 60,000 for the connector. Some more SCADA external monitoring upgrades and a new warehouse at the Fisher House property. That's expected to be about $300,000. And now I'll turn it back over.
So goal area 6 is again strategically investing in organizational development. And we do have the COLA that Julie mentioned. It's COLA/market adjustment. We have the town hall complex wiring upgrades for 150,000, vehicle replacements totaling 501,000. However, we did apply for a grant for part of that. We are continuing with our employee retention program for 5,000. So again, these are all projects that are on our CIP, but it's not exhaustive. There are additional projects on the CIP, and a copy of the CIP was included in the packet. So I encourage everyone to look at it. It's very comprehensive, and it's a 5-year plan that we're very proud of. The next slide is leveraging grants. And this is something that we really are focusing a lot of attention on. So I'm going to run through these very quickly, but these are grants that we've been awarded. We've been awarded 141,000 to do the Clarkdale Parkway sidewalks and bike lanes. This is for design only, but that makes the project shovel ready and will compete very well once the project is designed. So that's kind of been our strategy, is to get these projects shovel ready so we're ready to apply for construction grants. Cellular water meters, 563,000. We always budget for water meters every year, so we basically got all of the meters in town replaced for this grant. We have the affordable housing plan. This is just a planning grant to look at our housing in the community for 200,000. We got $1 million congressionally directed spending to design our new water tank, well, and arsenic treatment plant. So these will create redundancies in our system that are desperately needed. Next slide, the 6.6 million for the bridge, the 1.5 million for Selma Mangini Park. We got 500,000 was a Heritage Fund grant, and 1 million was a land and water conservation federal grant. So that was 1.5 million. Cement Plant Road multimodal. We got a $280,000 grant to design that, sidewalks, bike lanes, turn lanes. And again, that will set us up to apply for a construction grant. The Broadway Road overlay that we're working on now, $664,000 grant. Do you want to do the
Applications in process?
applications?
Yep, so we have a bunch more applications in process and are always looking for more that align with the projects that are on our list. So I'm just going to read off of a few of them that we have. And we're looking at, we have an application through the Cynthia Wood Mitchell's Fund for Historic Interiors, and that is for clubhouse windows. 15,000 might cover a couple, right?
Two.
And we're also applying for an APS Community Impact Grant for our concerts. Right? And then Safe Streets and Roads for All has, we have an application for radars for our police vehicles. And then we also have a pretty large congressionally directed spending package that we put forward. And that is for Purple Pipe at Sana Mangini Park, 527,000, cement plant road multimodal, and this would be for the construction, primarily at 3 million, and police station doors and windows, 175,000, and police vehicles, 251,000. And we only just heard that we had the award for our congressionally directed spending money. It took about a year, right?
Yeah.
So we may hear sometime next spring if we're lucky.
And we just received, the money for our police ATV vehicle. We don't have that on this list, so they're really excited about that. We're hoping it's here by July 4th. And we did hear on the APS grant, right?
Oh, great.
So
Right.
we're constantly looking for new grants, and I think DK and I are working on 2 or 3 right now that aren't even on this list, so. Okay.
So I think we'll skip the financial policies and review since you adopted those tonight. And
So the next slide are key dates. So you can see we had our preliminary work session on April 2nd. These are all meetings open to the public. April 9th, we had our second council work session on the budget. By the way, I think the April 2nd was 7 hours long. So these are intense, lengthy meetings. And I think Nate, didn't you have the fortune of sitting through the 7-hour meeting? Yeah, it's fun, huh? Yeah. And then on May 14th, which was our last meeting, we presented the draft budget. So public comment was allowed and council input. And then today, May 28th, we're doing the notice of a public hearing and council adoption of the tentative budget, which sets the upper spending limit, which means following this meeting, we can decrease the budget, but we cannot increase it. So this is really the max. Our next step will be June 25th, when we'll have our public hearing and adoption of the resolution for final budget and the property tax levy. And then finally, on July 9th, we'll have the ordinance to set the property valuation and adopt the property tax levy. So our budget will actually be adopted before the start of the fiscal year. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're very excited about this budget. I think we're in a wonderful financial position, and we're really making strides on addressing infrastructure in our community, which is desperately needed.
Any questions for a town manager, finance director?
I guess I'll say it like, we are a small town and with a lot of needs. And I think that the strategic plan, the budget, all of that shows what a coordinated effort that our small staff has worked so hard to achieve. There is a lot of lofty goals. There's a lot of lofty needs. And there's a lot of juggling. So to feel like we have a budget that reflects what our needs are, which is our strategic plan, is comforting, I guess. It's a little overwhelming to sit here and look to see at this little town that we'd have this huge budget, but it is, it's, for me as a council member, it is good to know that I feel like we have really thoughtful and policies and procedures and structures that get us to a good place. And Susan, I'm with you, like the idea that our budget will be adopted pretty much at the beginning of the fiscal year versus 2 months into the fiscal year, which I don't understand how anybody does that, is good though. And because I think that somebody could have just let that go. And
Yeah.
we would have operated, well, we hope that happens, so there's no guarantee that 100% of any of this will happen, but I think we at least have a really good roadmap, both from a strategic plan, both from a capital improvement project and from a budget standpoint. So hats off to you, Miss Julie.
thank you. Everybody, but thank you.
Vice Mayor.
To all of you, yeah.
Go.
And just to tag on to what Councilmember Jones was saying, the fact that we are getting it approved prior to the beginning of the fiscal year just means that we can maintain that continuity of all the work that's been done and just continue on. And again, I'll reiterate, if you look through this budget plan, it all ties back to the strategic plan and the general plan and all of that. So it's just a good over umbrella to everything that we're trying. And we are the little town that can. So go ahead.
I was facilitating a workshop today for a group in another municipality, and they were talking about, you know, there's not enough money. We only have enough money for needs. We never have enough money for wants. And I am so proud of this budget that we have the money that we need for the needs, and we are finding ways to make sure that we get the wants in there so that hopefully we can take care of some of this capital stuff and we don't have the issue like last summer where we knew the pump was going to fail and weeks before we could do anything about it, the pump failed. So thank you guys for just finding all these opportunities and budgeting so that when we receive the opportunities, we can take advantage of them and we are not in a place where we didn't budget for it and so we can't do anything.
Right. Any other comments?
I was going to say for folks who aren't familiar with the budget process, I think that is one of the trickiest things about budgeting in the state of Arizona. If it's not in your budget, you can't do it. So if we don't have contingency money to take care of our wastewater treatment or a sewer system or whatever that is, and it breaks, we can't do anything. So having the ability to sort of have that forethought to think about what could go wrong, what opportunities could present themselves. I mean, it's both, right? It's like planning for opportunities and planning for threats, like that you have to do that in the budget, because if it's not there, you can't do anything about it.
That's
And
why we include so much in our grants too. You know, you have a $6 million grant come in for a bridge project. And if you haven't, you know, if you're ready to go with it and you're ready to get off the ground, you can't do it if you didn't know when the timing was and didn't budget, you know. And that's why you see a big, you know, contingency in our grants in the revenue, because we want to be able to take advantage of opportunities that arise throughout the year. But I agree, it was daunting when, you know, it's a big budget for a little town. So before I started working here and was familiar with the Arizona, you know, rules, and I was looking online at the town of Clarkdale's budget, I was kind of horrified by the grants and the, you know, seeing these huge dollar amounts. And I thought, wow, what is going on? But it makes sense when you're here and you understand the rules, and that's just how you have to operate. You can't, you know, there's no such thing as going back mid-year and asking the council to allow you to use fund balance because you have an emergency arise. So.
Right. Thank you both for getting us to this point, and I agree with what everybody said. I'm just blown away how we are investing in our town. We're taking these precious dollars that come in through our revenue sources, putting them back, just not for our needs, but investing in the places that we need to invest in our town, and reaching to those grants so that we can get some of these projects done or underway that we've wanted for many, many years. And that's what's so great to see, is that we're not afraid to spend those dollars where it's appropriate, where it fits with our strategic plan, with the needs of our community. It's great for us to be able to do this. And luckily, the grant opportunities are there. They
Well,
haven't
and-
always been there in the past. And so I'm very proud of the staff constantly looking at opportunities to find grants to be able to fund these projects, the 29, 30 to 40 different capital improvement projects that we have that we want to see underway or get funded so we can get this stuff done. Half of our budget is in grants. The rest are dollars that are coming in from our other sources. So this is pretty big for us. We know we can do it. We did, if you looked at our annual report last year, we brought in over close to $10 million in grants last year. 21 million doesn't seem that daunting. It seems aspirational, but I don't think staff would have put it forward, any of this forward if they didn't feel that they had the capacity. And I know that our staff has this capacity to get these grants in and to make the projects go forward.
And
I
immense-
think,
It's
yeah.
been just immensely helpful to have a grants manager too, and that was a
Yes.
decision we made at the last budget process when
Absolutely.
we were finding that we wanted to be able to take advantage of all of these opportunities, but we just didn't have the bandwidth. We couldn't do our day-to-day
Right.
operations and still do all of these grant,
And
funded projects. So, and I was somewhat doubtful that we could keep him busy, our grants manager, and he's plenty busy.
it's
So-
not, it's just not finding grants, it's taking care of grants to make
Mm-hmm.
sure we're in compliance, because that's just
Yeah,
about as
'cause
difficult.
The staff members are still writing grants. The grants manager doesn't necessarily write the grants.
No.
All the staff members do, but he like shepherds it through, gets the applications
Right.
through. But most importantly, like you said, Mayor, the compliance is huge, especially on federal grants. So, our goal is to not have missteps, to just ask a million questions, make sure we have those relationships with the agencies. So we really are getting good information and it's already paid off for us.
It absolutely has. It's definitely a team in grant
Yes.
development, writing, and taking care of them. So this is fabulous. Our biggest concern is we're going to hit up against our expenditure limit, which is set by state law. So I think we talked about that a little bit in budget. You raised that concern, and I think we're not the only town that's facing this. Yavapai County's county manager expressed the same situation, that we're going into, bump up against our expenditure limit. And at that point, we can't go over it unless there's a change in state law that allows us to do that. So it's this is great, but it's cautious because where can we grow? We can only grow as fast as we are allowed by state law to do that.
How is our budget determined by the state? Is there a formula? I think I probably asked you this, but I don't remember
Yes.
the answer. Is
Yeah,
there a
that-
formula
It is a formula.
based on
but it's-
population
I
or?
believe so. Look at
And
the
a
mayor.
percentage
There was
increase.
like a base year and then it is founded off of the base year and then there's this calculation each year. So it does grow every year,
Mhm.
but our
I
big.
think
con-
it's like 2% or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
some-
that is the,
But our big concern is that I don't think it took into account grants.
yeah.
Right.
And
it
so
does.
that's where we're growing. It's really not, I think, what did we go up
Operationally,
20?
we'd be just fine with that limit where it is. It's just if we want to be able to have the sun and the stars and the moon with our grants, then we might bump up against the cap. But
Yeah.
I'm
That's right.
I'm comfortable right now where we stand, that there's so much room in the grants budget just because we have been going, doing so much there
Right.
that I think we'll be okay for the near term, but it is,
We just
something
have
to
to
watch.
watch it.
It's
Yeah.
something to watch.
Mhm.
Yeah. And just to note, the state legislature still is not moving on much on the state budget. Word is there's not much negotiation going on, and I think one of the houses is out in recess and the other one doesn't come back until June 4th. So who knows when we're going to get a state budget? It's supposed to be adopted by June 30th.
And that's important because we get a chunk of money from the
Right.
state. So
Right.
whatever they do will have a trickle down effect to us.
Exactly. So with that, if we're done with our questions, I'd like to open it to public if you have any comments or questions. So please come up to the microphone and state your name and if you're a Clarkdale resident.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the
Nice to see
council,
you.
Jackie Salet. I live at 1423rd South. I have a couple of questions. Before I ask them, though, I just wanted to offer my support for the wonderful job you guys are doing. This is the first budget meeting I've been to in the town. And watching you all work and hearing the results, I really felt like the entire US Congress should step aside and you all should take over budgeting for the United States of America. We would be in much better shape than we currently are. My commentary aside, two questions. Susan, you referenced that the work with retail strategies, that you're making progress, and I would be interested to know what that progress consists of and how, how basically what's happening on that front. And my other question was, I noticed the $200,000 allocation on the affordable housing front, and I'm trying to understand a little bit more what that is for and how that works. That's obviously a concern of many people in the town. So if you could speak to
Sure.
that. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks.
So
Thank you
on-
for your questions.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So on Retail Strategies, they're a nationwide firm that basically does economic development. So instead of hiring another employee that would probably be $150,000, instead we contract with this third-party organization, and they have relationships with all the national retailers, and they also attend all of the national retail shows. And so basically they did a whole market assessment of Clarkdale. They looked at all available commercial property. They assessed, what kind of retailers might be interested in those types of locations. And then they did a marketing piece for us that's directed just at national retailers. And now the next phase that we're in right now is they're pitching Clarkdale to national retailers. And every quarter we get a kind of a summary of what businesses they've pitched us to and what the feedback was from those businesses. Typically, this type of process takes at least 2 years, if not longer, to, plant the seed, have them start coming out here and looking, talking to property owners. It's not an instant gratification kind of thing, but again, we're trying to plan for the long-term future and stability of the community. So does that answer your question on Retail Strategies?
Could you share what some of the
Sure. Yes, some of it is really, good, like, we had never considered Clarkdale. We'll come take a look. Or can you send us information on parcels that are available? And now this company has an inventory of all of our commercial property that's available, and we've connected them to many of the property owners. So they would deal directly with the property owners to connect the retailer to the property owners. But some of the feedback is, hey, we're not doing that size of market right now. We're not interested right now. We're going to Cottonwood right now, so we're not going to build something that close by. So it's a myriad of answers, but it helps us know what kind of things we need to do to facilitate that kind of development that we want. And, we don't want everything. I think we all know that, but we have to get into the game in order to be able to be selective. But one example is on Thursday night's meeting about the policies, the ordinance changes. One of the things that's been pointed out is that right now we have an overlay on 89A that I don't think a lot of people even know it's there, but we do. And it requires a 50-foot setback from the ADOT right-of-way. So in some cases, Ruth, 90 or 70 feet back, 90 feet back, I mean, it's high. So it's pushing the businesses way back into the parcels. And then because of that, there's two ramifications. Number one, you're dramatically decreasing the buildable space that they can use. Number two, you're pushing them so far off the road that they're not that visible. But most importantly to me is we're pushing them back closer to the neighborhoods. So we just worked with a national retailer on a parcel, and I think they're pulling out. They were going to move forward, and now they're pulling out because that 50-foot setback doesn't give them enough room to do their project, and it would put them right up against some houses. So that's one of the proposed changes we're looking at Thursday night, and that's the kind of information that we learn from this type of situation is let's hear the feedback. What are we doing that could help this situation? Okay. And then the second question, what was it?
On the affordable
Oh,
housing plan.
So that was a grant that was made available by the state of Arizona. And so we applied for the grant, and basically it's a housing assessment. It's to look at what are our housing needs, where are our gaps, where do we have a lot of, kind of overrepresented in certain categories, what categories are we not represented in? And it will just be a plan of action that they then will provide to us. So it's no particular project, it's just an assessment. So we kind of have a better idea and, what kind of products we might want to consider in the future. Does that help? You're welcome.
Welcome. Are there any other questions or comments on the budget? Online, is there anybody? So if we do a test on the budget, you all understand it just like we do. Oh, I know. I'm just kidding. I don't expect that, but I hope that people do take an opportunity and at least look through. The presentation gives you a lot of information. Here's the big book if you want to know all the nitty details. We get to keep it. I think we'll turn it back to Julie when we finally adopt the budget. So we can look at it. But it's time. It's time to adopt this tentative budget. So if there's no other questions from the public or council, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I recommend that council adopt the town of Clarkdale's tentative budget for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2025 in the amount of $43,695,019, of which $21,130,947 is grant funding.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Jones and seconded by Vice Mayor Hunstetter to adopt the town of Clarkdale's tentative budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 in the amount of $43,695,019, of which $21,130,947 is grant funding. Yes.
Do we need to have them name the public hearing date as part of this motion or no? Could you just add the notice of public hearing at our next meeting?
Oh, yes,
June
and
11th.
announce as part of the motion.
That there'll be a public hearing on the budget at our next meeting on June 11th, 2024.
I'll
June
second
11th
that
or
as-
June 25th?
Is it June 25th or June 11th? Sorry. June 25th, not our
June
next meeting.
25th,
June
yeah.
25th.
I agree with that motion
Okay,
and
you will,
second that.
you'll take that as part of the motion and add to the motion and that there will be a public hearing on June 25th. On June 25th. Okay. Is there anything else? Any other comments on the motion? If hearing none, and seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, motion carried. We now have a tentative budget. Yay. Julie's taking a deep breath. Thank you both.
Judy.
And thank you, staff. Okay, let's move on to item 7, which is future agenda items. I think there was a list of possible agenda items coming up. Is there anything else we need to add? Just wanted to note the opt-out provision for the cellular meters should be coming back to us. We did 60-day notice in April, so June, the end of June. Okay. Okay. Anything else anybody would like to add to the agendas coming up? Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved to, by Vice Mayor Hunstetter and seconded by Councilmember Babbitt Pierce to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, hearing none, the meeting is adjourned at 4:43 PM. Thank you all very much for coming and thank you for your comment.